Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to season 2 of the Profit Power Hour presented by Profit Coach. Any property managers in the house today? It's a great day to be in the property management industry. Jeremy Pound and I with you to talk about how to optimize your unit acquisition cost, strategies from top performing PMs. And again, this is episode number 4 of season 2 of the Profit Power Hour. Thanks for joining us today. And super thankful for everybody's contributions and helping us build such a great audience and a great following around this segment of webinars that we hope are a great asset to you in your desire to build profitable property management companies. Well, where are you tuning in from today? Love to get some feedback from you. If you guys want to jump into chat, and attendees can chat with everybody, you got to select that option. Tell us where you're tuning in from, jump into chat, and maybe one other thing. What are you thankful for today? I really like to just get some gratitude going on. And I know for myself, thankful for springtime. It's been a long winter here in Denver, Colorado. We don't actually have warm days like you do every day of the year, Jeremy. So what are you thankful for today, Jeremy?
Oh, that's great. I love that. I'm hearing this from everywhere else. We're making the opposite transition. We're going from our beautiful time of year into the hot, sweltering time of the year. Yeah. So I'm grateful for the amazing warm winter we've had, which has been amazing.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on, everybody. We've got Jeremy Pound with RentScale joining us today, probably no stranger to most of you. And Jeremy, I just love doing content with you and going back and forth on things that I know are important to both of us as it relates to helping property managers really get the most out of what they're in business for, and that's more freedom. And a lot of that has to do with optimizing growth. More growth, more profit, more freedom. That's what we're here for today. I'm Daniel Craig, author of the NARPM Accounting Standards, CEO at Profit Coach, and we help property managers expand their entrepreneurial freedom by building highly profitable, self-managing companies. And of course, Jeremy's with RentScale, and you'll hear a little bit more about what they're passionate about as we go along today. Well, you know, I always say this, but it's just good to remember all that we have to be grateful for. These are some things I'm grateful for, some people I'm grateful for today, and certainly cute kids bring a lot of joy to our life. So if you have family, go give them an extra hug today. I know I'm thankful for mine. All right, questions. If you've got questions, drop them in the Q&A box. That way we can be sure and track along with you. And wow, we got some good gratitudes coming in here. Thankful to leave the snow in Saskatchewan for warmer weather. I love that. Carla, looking forward to seeing you at Broker Owner. And Melissa, same to you. Grateful to be going to Broker Owner next week. Yeah, just go ahead and drop that in chat. If you're going to Broker Owner next week, just raise your hand and say, yeah, we're going to be there. And hopefully we can see you guys in the vendor hall, and look forward to everybody getting together there. Russ Vandentoren, thanks and humbled by Christ's forgiveness of my sins. Russ, I resonate with that a lot. Thank you for sharing that. All right, great gratitudes. We're going to dive in. How to optimize your unit acquisition cost strategies from top performing PMs. As always, we're here to help you move from financial fog to financial clarity, from gut-based decision-making to predictable forecasting, and ultimately from mediocrity to benchmark success. And perhaps there's not an area of financial performance and business management that's more important to have clarity, predictability, and ultimately success than the area of lead generation. Jeremy, I think it goes without saying that this is an area where there's a lot of fog for a lot of people. What works, what doesn't work. A lot of just gut-based decision-making, you know, yeah, we're going to add 150 doors this year. And how are we going to do that? We don't really know, but it just sounded like a good number. You know, how many doors does that mean that we're going to add given the doors that we're going to lose? We don't really know. How many leads is it going to take to do that? We don't really know. Tons of opportunity for clarity. And folks, that's what we're here to help you get clear on today. So are you ready? Let's get a little virtual drum roll going, and let's dive in. Jeremy, I'm going to throw up a poll here, and we're going to get some feedback from the audience, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask you right off the bat, What do you think is the greatest challenge for property managers when it comes to lead generation? You've obviously worked with a lot of people on the sales side of things. But what do you think is the greatest challenge as you've worked with people? Your feedback in a second. Here are the options, folks. Knowing where to start, knowing which audiences to target, knowing which mediums or channels to use, getting the right messaging offer, or measuring ROI, or getting qualified leads. I have a guess where this is going, but your feedback, Jeremy.
All these are challenges. I'd say that the thing that I've experienced the most, and when I talk to our clients, and by the way, as we're going to talk about a little more, I used to run a marketing agency, not for property managers, but for small service-based businesses, which were companies just like property managers. And I think that the biggest challenge with lead gen is kind of like knowing where to start, not fighting off everything. There's so much opportunity. There's so many mediums and there's so many schools of thought out there that it's really overwhelming. And that's really what I've found is everybody just wants to try everything. And it's almost like it's not death by starvation, it's death by overconsumption.
That's great feedback. And we've got people still responding, but I'm going to go ahead and shoot up the results here. Knowing where to start, 10% of people said yes, that's me. Interestingly, some tactical feedback here though, knowing which mediums or channels to use. But honestly, kind of like that's another version of knowing where to start. Like, so many options. Where do you start? Getting qualified leads. This one's interesting to me because basically what they're saying is the symptom of their challenge is their biggest challenge.
Yes.
But I think it's important to recognize like that is a symptom, and there's some questions and challenges upstream of that are really what we're going to help you solve today. Any feedback on that, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the conversation I had all the time running a marketing agency, and then I have all the time speaking to property managers. And that is, it all starts with what is a qualified lead? What is your expectation, right? If your expectation of a qualified lead is you call them and you're basically just an order taker and they're ready to sign up, that's a pretty high bar, right? But if your expectation of a qualified lead is this is somebody who may one day be a great client for me, and they're at any path along the buyer's journey, or they just maybe need some information, that's a lower bar. So I would ask the people that said getting qualified leads, if they are getting leads at all, meaning that it's not getting leads, but it's getting qualified leads, I'd really want to make sure you're clear on what the bar is for a qualified lead. We're going to dive into that as we go through the presentation today.
And here's good news. Perhaps as a result of today's presentation, you're going to realize that you had more to work with than you thought when it comes to leads. And here's a sneak preview. There's a difference between a sales qualified lead and a marketing qualified lead, but more on that later. All right, great feedback, everybody. Thanks for jumping in and participating. And the context for some of the discussion that we want to have today is we've got better data than we've ever had on financial performance as it relates to lead generation, unit acquisition cost as a result of the 2022 NARPM Financial Benchmark Studies. Jeremy and I are going to talk through some of this because it's a little abstract, to be honest. Even like the whole concept of unit acquisition costs, in what way does that actually frame your thinking about sales and marketing and lead generation? And then we get to, unit lifetime profit, the ratio between that and unit acquisition cost, which we're going to talk about here. And it's even more abstracted. And we're going to try to contextualize some of this for you and then help you get some clear action steps of what to do in light of some of these numbers that I'm going to share with you. But at the end of the day, we're seeing a major shift in property management financial performance. And we have more clarity on where the direction of the industry is in terms of profitability. Things have significantly improved in terms of financial performance. And there's just an increasing level of sophistication in this industry. The top 25% of performers have gone from 25% profitability up to 32%. You guys have seen these slides. Why am I bringing these up today? And that's because, again, I think when it comes to growth, we're seeing increasing levels of sophistication and really, like, you've got to be on your game. because there's a lot of people that want in this industry and because of those profits. And so when it comes to, and perhaps that's for the real takeaway, because of the degree of profitability and the degree of opportunity in this industry, you have to be on your game when it comes to growth. You're not just going to get the amount of growth you probably want as a result of people just calling you. Things have changed and you have to understand what we're talking about. And ultimately you have to own marketing strategy, but more on that later. When it comes to unit acquisition cost, Jeremy, I remember we had this conversation at NARPM National last year, like the day before we're about to, release the goods on what, the new unit acquisition benchmark is. And that was a really exciting conversation because I basically said, I've got a number to validate what you've been telling people for the last couple of years.
I remember that well. You don't always forget when people tell you that you're right, especially when smart.
Exactly. And so we're going to talk about that, but essentially the benchmark in 2018 was $341, and that's just what people were spending on advertising. And now the average spend on advertising is $445. But that's not really valuable. Like, okay, so that's the average spend. What should I be spending? Well, the answer to that question is really predicated upon like, well, who do you want to imitate? And of course, the answer to that is you want to be imitating people that are growing and adding more doors. And so that's where the new data in the 2022 financial benchmark study is really interesting. And that is that we were able to look at spend on various types of unit acquisition costs. And by the way, this is available to all NARPM members. And NARPM has also published a version of this that's available to the public. But we looked at unit acquisition costs, kind of all potential spends, just the advertising piece, PM sales labor, or marketing labor, and then various combinations. And so you can kind of see it broken down. But the main thing is just looking at this top line, the all-in version of this. And what we basically did was we looked at spend relative to people's growth rates. And essentially we said, what are the companies that are growing the fastest spending? And that's this column right here. And what are the companies who are growing the slowest in terms of average number of new doors per month spending? And so that's where the benchmark is $769. That is the average spend, including advertising, sales, and marketing labor for companies that are growing the fastest. And the interesting thing about this is if you grow faster and you actually master sales and marketing, you will experience economies of scale. The people that are getting hosed are actually the people that are growing the slowest. Thoughts on this table, Jeremy, and what came up for you when you saw this data for the first time?
Yeah, exactly. So there's we all know this in business. You can optimize too quickly, meaning that if you're getting one lead per month in your business, you really have no business like optimizing the cost of that lead, right? Until you are getting enough leads to effectively have, economies of scale, have a closing rate that you can trust on, be statistically significant with the numbers you're looking at. You're just playing business. And we've all had that conversation. We've all been there as business owners. It's like, yeah, I really want to
all do that to some degree today.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I got a great closing rate. This is my favorite one. They're like, I have 100% closing rate, Jeremy. I'm like, okay, how many leads did you get last month? They're like 3. And one was my mom's boss. The other one was my college roommate. And the third one was a door I own, right? But it's like, you can't, that's not 100% closing rate. Like, that's not statistically significant. And so yeah. I think it's just a slightly different view of what you're saying, which is people might be trying to over optimize before they even are in the game. They even have enough leads to make it work. And then within that, as you're seeing, people that are frequently and reliably, consistently generating a stable pool of leads are actually making the most money because of economies of scale. And so, you shouldn't be optimizing too soon. You should just be getting in the game. And then from there is a sweet spot, which I think you're going to talk about.
We're going to go right there. So the takeaway from that table is here's the benchmark in terms of all-in spend on advertising and marketing and sales. And by the way, like just so that you all can get value out of what we're sharing, there's a lot of value here. And one of the points of value is, what should you be spending on a BDM for a new door? Okay. Like, and you can see that people are spending, the people that are adding the most doors are spending an average of $178 per door on their BDM. Now, I think that that's very optimized, and I would tolerate anything in the range of like 300 to 400, maybe 500 per door. But this is the kind of insight here that's available. So, like, what should I be spending in terms of advertising? Well, it would be, this piece here. So there's a lot of valuable data here that you can answer important questions around appropriate spends as you think about your sales and marketing efforts. But as Jeremy was saying, there's a sweet spot. And what we wanted to look at was, as you scale your door growth over time, is there a point at which you sort of have to up the spend to break through a ceiling of new doors per month? And so what you can see is we've again taken the same various different types of unit acquisition cost and bracketed them based off the number of doors that were being added by companies in each bracket. So if you're at, again, on the low end, 1 to 5 doors a month, you're spending the most. 6 to 10, it comes down a lot, less than half. And 11 to 20 is the sweet spot here. And what we see is that if you want to go over 20 doors a month, you're probably going to have to up the ante a bit when it comes to your growth spend. Not massively, but maybe like 20%. And then frequently I see some of our clients who are growing the fastest in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 to 40 doors per month, consistently spending, I would say, between $1,000 and $1,300 per door in total unit acquisition cost. So,
Jeremy, if you don't mind me jumping in on that last
please.
table, because this is one area you and I talked about where, if you don't mind going back to the last table, this is not a number where you should be optimizing for as low as possible, right? So think about it. Are you going to be upset if company A is your competitor or your peer in NARPM, and they're closing 11 doors a month at $745, but you're closing 30 at $1,000 per door? You're still closing 30 doors and they're closing 10. And yes, you are spending, maybe like $200 more per door, but are you really going to be upset that you don't have the lowest cost of acquisition, but you're still closing more, right? So this is one of the metrics that we talked about in your study that doesn't have a max, right? Like, you're not trying to beat everybody. You have to decide what works for your business. So I did want to say that.
Yeah. And like, while we, kind of have this sweet spot here around 20 doors per month, are you okay spending $1,000 or, a 1.5K to get up to 40 doors a month? Well, probably, but the way to answer that question is actually a little more scientific. And that's let me just skip a couple of these slides here. That brings us to this next point here, which is really some, again, new insight from the last benchmark study. And if you haven't seen this table or you don't understand it, just hang with us here, okay? Because this is going to be meaningful to you. And the basic question that we're asking is, how much can you afford to spend on a new door? And the answer to that question, if you're trying to run a profitable business and ultimately you're building the business for yourself, as opposed to just trying to spend a boatload of money to grow it and sell it off to somebody else. So I'm contextualizing this for the standard property manager who's trying to build a profitable business. The answer to how much you can afford to spend on a new door is tied to how much you're going to make on that door over the lifetime. Okay. So if your profitability is such that your unit lifetime profit is only $1,000, would you want to spend $1,200 to get that new door? Jeremy, it's a trick question.
Yeah.
No, you would not. Okay.
You're not. I'm going to make it up on scale, Danny.
You're going to make it up on scale. Exactly. All right. And so that's basically what this is looking at. And I know this looks really complicated, but basically these are acronyms: unit lifetime profit before sales and marketing, or unit acquisition cost. So what you want to look at is, all right, if my unit lifetime profit before I spend anything on sales and marketing is, $3,000, then how much of that $3,000 would I be willing to spend on unit acquisition costs? If you spend 3,000, it would basically be break even. Okay. So that's what this ratio is measuring, is the ratio between your unit acquisition costs and your lifetime profit before you spend anything on sales and marketing. And the cool thing here is the data shows what's potential. And essentially what this chart is showing us is these lines right here basically show us companies that are adding more doors. So this line here is companies that's added the most doors per month. And this line right here are companies that are adding the least doors per month. Okay. And then these columns are profitability columns. And so essentially this right here is what the highest profitable, the most profitable, highest growth companies are doing. And they're getting a 9-to-1 ratio on their unit acquisition cost. Okay. So that means that if they're spending $1,000 on a new unit, their lifetime profit on that unit is $9,000. Okay. And so basically what I take away from this is there's a range. I really wouldn't go below 3-to-1. Okay. If you're below 3-to-1, you're probably just not trying or being very effective with your marketing. Okay. Or you just have a low profit company. And it might be time to step back and say, hey, before I invest so much in getting new doors, I just need to increase the profitability of our operation, or I need to optimize my marketing spend. I would say generally what this data shows us is that the sweet spot is somewhere in the 5 to 9 range in terms of that ratio. So again, just to try to make this as absolutely simple, we're trying to answer the question, how much can I afford to spend on a new door? And I would say in general, the answer to that question is target a 5 to 10x return on your unit acquisition cost in total lifetime profit. Okay.
Do you mind? I want to ask you a question about this, if
Please.
that's okay, because I think this is great. So I completely agree with what you're saying. We joked about making it up on scale. Like if you would not spend $3,000 to have a lifetime customer value of $2,000. That is a very, very charitable way to go to business. However, for some of our listeners on the call, because I run into this a lot when we speak and we get asked these questions, like let's talk about our friends that have 11 doors. They don't even have economies of scale yet from an operational standpoint. What are your thoughts on kind of the everyone knows like the rocket uses like 80% of their fuel to leave the atmosphere, and they can like fly to Mars with like the last 20%. What are your thoughts about when you're in startup mode? Do you want to be aggressive? Like, because I mean, honestly, can you really calculate your profitability per door when you have a full-time employee, maybe 2 assistants, all these softwares that we're paying for, and I'm managing 11 doors? Like at what point do you think these numbers really need to be looked at, or is it from door one? This is the first time I'm asking. I'm throwing you a curveball. Your thoughts on this?
I would say that we're asking 2 different questions, which is 1, when do we start measuring this? And number 2, when do we start holding ourselves accountable to achieving these targets? Yes. And I would say probably should start measuring your unit acquisition cost, as soon as you're spending any kind of significant money on sales and marketing, right? That's when tracking your ROI, tracking your ROI is important when you're actually making an investment, anytime. So but your other question, I think it's just a bigger question, is at what point do these metrics become relevant? Jeremy, I'm just spitballing on this one. Let's define a standard right off the cuff here. But I would generally say, my gut says 100 doors. But I would say it also has to do a little bit with what your structure tells you is sort of your homeostasis threshold. In other words, like if you're Steve Crossland and you're doing the 100 door play and you're building everything for running a profitable business at 100 doors, then you should probably start tracking these metrics and be able to achieve them at 50 to 75 doors, right? Or something like that. But maybe your whole structure is predicated on 200 doors. Because then at that point, you're not going to be doing any property management. Whereas in the 100 door model, you probably are doing property management. And probably, honestly, that's probably the biggest structural difference there. Is the owner going to be doing property management or not? And that's, I would say, once you hit that point of scale, you really need to optimize profitability for that before you just allow yourself to keep growing into the future and not be profitable, because you should be able to be profitable certainly at 100 doors if you're in a property management role. And I think even at 200 if you're not. That's my take. Jordan, what do you think, Jeremy?
It's hugely helpful. I do agree. I mean, one of the things we write these sales playbooks. One thing that's apparent to me, talking to our best, smartest property managers, is one of the value propositions that you guys have in this industry is economies of scale, right? Mm-hmm. I'm working with enough people that I get vendors to show up sooner, cost me less money. The software cost starts to break down. I can provide a service that you, Mr. Owner, could not provide with 4 doors on your own or a single door, right? And so I've just had a lot of these conversations at conferences and sales calls where people want to invest in their business, but they're over fixated on optimizing for profit and for acquisition cost. But they're at like 11 doors, right? And so that's just the number I'm using. Yeah. I'm thinking of a recent example. But if they have the staff and they have the overhead and they have the cost to manage 100 doors, and that's a fixed cost, right? So I know we're a little deviating here, and I'm more in your world, but I got fixed costs that can manage 100 doors, but I'm only managing 25. That's like 75 doors of waste. That's like loaves of bread if you were a supermarket.
You got to backfill that unutilized capacity ASAP.
Exactly. And so that's what I guess I'm saying is there is a point where optimizing for acquisition cost maybe is not the goal. Although it is the goal as you scale, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. You and I hadn't talked about that, but that's been on my mind. So I'm going to harp on that.
And I would basically say 2 things. One is your model may or may not require you to have that extra capacity. And that's where we get to the whole, like, I'm staffing for growth question. And that is, and my general perspective on that is like, there's minimum viable staff structure. And then beyond that, your staffing model should be pretty scalable. I know I've seen it. People can scale profitably from 300 on up, especially in the direct labor segment of their business. But let's say, you've got a team built for 200, but you're at 100 doors today, and your whole premise is built around getting to 200 doors in terms of your labor structure. Yeah, by all means, get there as fast as you possibly can. Okay, so to summarize this point, why does unit acquisition cost matter? It matters because more advertising dollars doesn't necessarily mean more growth. And we see this all the time. This is the data from the benchmark study that we just did, where you've got, here's the spend on advertising and growth, anywhere from $0 to $500,000. And the results are just like all over the map. You've got this company that spent, $50,000 on growth, added 400 new doors. That was probably a large portfolio, admittedly. But then you got this company over here that spent, 200 and they added 50 doors, right? And so more sales and marketing spend doesn't necessarily mean more growth, which is why you need to know, measure, and track and optimize these numbers, and then understand the strategy behind how they're optimized. Otherwise, this is going to be you, and you really don't want this to be you. Okay, so that is a good segue to where we want to go. And Jeremy, I'm gonna let you take it away here. We're going to talk a little bit about the strategy of lead generation. We've got some questions coming in here. How are PMs generating leads to close 20 doors per month? Glad you asked. That's exactly what we want to talk about today. How are you getting to increase doors? Where are you spending your advertising dollars? Exactly what we want to cover today. So Jeremy, let's go ahead and dive into this concept of lead generation strategy. And I think specifically, when it comes to lead generation, just talk a little bit about how the average PM, thinks about this. And what you see are the opportunities in terms of a mindset shift around engaging the whole topic of lead generation.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of this. So Danny, I mean, obviously, we first and foremost are trying to help fast-growing property managers convert more of the opportunity they have. And if I do a good job at that, at some point, clients are going to say, wonderful, Jeremy, we're converting at a high percentage. How do we get more opportunity? And so this just kept coming across our plate. And then with, smaller organizations that were newer to the business, they just didn't know where to start. And I see in the chat, like, how are you generating these doors? For some owners, closing 20 doors a month might mean 50 to 60 leads coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I know for some of our clients, that's just like mind-boggling. They just don't know where that
Mm-hmm.
is. So just a quick context of what I want to share.
And by the way, we're not seeing your screen yet. If you want.
Yeah, I wasn't sharing yet. I just wanted to set the stage as I did
Awesome.
this. So everything I want to share with you is coming from two places. Number one, before I started RentScale, I did own a marketing agency for service-based businesses. And so I managed millions of dollars a year in advertising, completely focused on lead gen. That was the niche of our marketing agency. We didn't do any e-commerce. We didn't do, any like branding stuff. We just focused on lead gen. So I had some experience. Running a marketing agency was not my favorite thing to do, Danny. We can talk about that over drinks one day. It's just not a great business for me to scale. But then I got into this and I kept seeing this pattern. I kept seeing this problem.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I really spent the fourth quarter specifically of last year. We worked with over 400 clients in property management, and I went out and I talked to them and I said, hey, what's working for you? Where are the leads coming from? Can you show me exactly what you're doing? And I looked under the hood at a number of companies, and it really reminded me that it kind of solidified that this is the same thing we used to teach when I ran a marketing agency, but now I've got actual relevant context, like what mediums are people using,
Mm-hmm.
what are they saying, what is it costing them? And so that's what I want to share with the team today. So I just wanted to kind of preface that, what we're talking about today. We're actually seeing this working on a highly scalable basis today. And so I just want you guys to take that context. And you guys can ask questions. I can talk about specific mediums, specific campaigns, but I just want to keep it fairly high level because I've got a lot of slides and I think we only have 3 hours left. Is that correct?
That's right. Just 3 hours left.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get through the whole thing as we go through this. So you really inspired this, Danny. I mean, this was, I love the number. I had, sometimes you have a concept that you believe in your mind, and then somebody else comes along and they put a label on it and they put structure. And it was the unit acquisition cost, right? What are most people spending and what are the best people spending and why is that? And so I'm sure, even though you and I have not shared any confidential notes, that a lot of the strategies that I'm going to share, because you and I share so many clients, are from your people in the top 25%.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to talk about what that is. But the first thing I want to share is just a common problem I'm seeing overall with this idea of lead gen. So there's this concept I call kind of a default pattern. So when we all start our business, Danny, from your world, most of us don't have budgets. We don't have targets. We kind of log in every morning and we look at our bank account. And if we have enough money, we invest. And if we don't invest, right? It's just a default pattern. On the marketing side, what I see, which is an equally toxic default pattern, is that everybody's making a medium-based decision. So what do I mean by medium? A medium is how you go out and reach people. So a medium could be AdWords. It could be direct mail. It could be hiring a lead gen service like All Property Management. It could be SEO. It could be social media. What we do is we go to these NARPM events, we go to these conferences, we look around, or we watch YouTube and we look at what the most successful small businesses are doing. And they're like, you got to be on YouTube. You got to do SEO. You got to do this. You got to do outbound. And what our clients are doing is they're making a medium-based decision, which means if I pick the right medium, the decision's over, and that's going to be a successful lead gen campaign. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the most toxic default patterns that I think we make as small biz owners. And I think, Danny, you may agree with that. I've been there before, but that's not works. There's more to it. The medium is just one ingredient of the pie.
And what that does is it basically restricts your whole thinking, your whole mindset around strategy, because basically you sort of force the strategic conversation out of your brain by making a tactical limiting decision up front. And as soon as that one tactic stops working, and honestly, I think this is where a lot of the pain around sales and marketing is it's changing all the time, particularly on the marketing side of things, not so much sales. Yeah. But the marketing side of things is. And so as soon as you pick that one tactic, and as soon as that one tactic stops working, shoot, we can't figure out marketing. And that's because you haven't figured out the ongoing process for the strategy conversation by which you pick those mediums, which I just know I'm stealing your thunder. Sorry.
By falling in love with the medium, you are basically saying, I don't need to do the hard work of strategy. I've found the tactic, and therefore the tactic works or it doesn't. Meanwhile, we all know some people are crushing it in SEO, and some people are not. Some people are crushing it in direct mail. Some people are not. Some people are crushing it in video and YouTube. Some people are not, right? And the difference is the strategy, and it's the high level view of how you take it. So thank you very much for setting me up for that. I'm going to share with you guys this super simple concept that I think is worth $100,000. This will either save you $100,000 in wasted advertising, or it'll make you an extra $100,000 in business this year. It is so simple, but it is so key. So if we shift from this idea of a medium-based decision, and we realize that all lead gen is about a campaign, then we can actually start to hone in and strategically make decisions, as Danny was just talking about. So the core concept that I want to instill in you guys today is that a campaign is what works, not a medium. A medium is a single number in the 3-digit lock of the combination code of a campaign. So the medium is one thing. That's how you reach people. Am I reaching people on Facebook? Am I reaching people through Google Ads? Am I reaching people through direct mail? Is it through outbound? Is it email? But we also need the right message to get that person's attention, and we need the right offer to make sure they follow through. And to illustrate how, basically solid this concept is let's just imagine that we only have 2 of the 3. So let's say we have the right medium. So we have the best list anybody ever gave us. It's the exact address, phone number, and email of every person that owns 5+ properties in my market, in my town. So I'm going to send them a letter, and I know it's reaching the right people. My medium is checked. Second, I'm going to make an amazing offer. I'm actually going to offer to manage their property for free for the next 5 years. Now, I know Danny is not going to recommend that you do that for profitability reasons, but let's just be a little bit hyperbole here, or like a little bit over the top. And let's just say that we offer them 5 years of free management, but we don't write the right message in the letter. They don't know, they don't trust us. They don't know that we can actually do it. They don't actually think we're going to make them more money by managing their property. So we've got the right medium, we've got the right offer, but nobody's really going to see it because they're just going to basically open it and throw it in the garbage. Now, let's just say that we've got the right message, and we basically talk about how we're the largest property manager in the area, and we have the most 5-star reviews, and we have this amazing offer that we're going to manage your property for eternity for free, but we're basically sending it to the wrong list, or we're running ads for the wrong keywords, or we're basically like just trying to use the yellow pages, which, as we all know, like nobody knows what yellow pages are anymore. Half the people on this call, we've missed the medium. Again, nobody sees it. So you can really see where this all comes together. Now, if I find the right medium, and I've got this amazing, ad that's only showing up on Boca Raton Real Estate Investors Guide in Florida, and it's the perfect place, and it's for everybody, and I'm saying all these amazing things, but I'm basically just hoping they call me, and I don't make them an offer. I don't basically tell them why they should take action. Then resistance will take effect, and everybody will default to apathy, right? We all know our biggest competitor is not the guy down the road. It's not anybody else that we're working with. It's not the big national people. Our biggest competitor is apathy. They do nothing. They self-manage, or they stay with who they are. So if we don't have the right offer, they know about us, but they don't take action. There's a very fancy term for this. It's called branding. And so a lot of people love that. And branding can be good, but it's not going to generate leads. Branding does not generate leads. So that's why it's so important that we involve ourselves in this idea of coming up with campaigns. So when you have the right medium, and you know how to reach the right people, you have the right message, and you have the right offer, that is the only way to generate leads. So my guess is most people on the call are like, give me the cheat code, Jeremy. What's the right thing? You're already defaulting to medium. You're just like, okay, is it pay-per-click? Is it, he's mentioned direct mail 3 times. Is that where it is? Right? You're basically defaulting to this idea of just giving me the cheat code. And that's medium-based thinking. And that's what everybody does. Just like what
and back to what we were saying earlier, tactics-based thinking. And strategy avoidance.
Yes, exactly. So it's just like, yeah, exactly. You're not doing the hard work that everybody needs to do. So we call this combo a campaign. We think that all lead gen comes from a healthy arsenal of campaigns. That means not one, that means multiple campaigns based on people where they are in the buying process. So a second philosophy that we talk about here at Renscale all the time that you guys may have seen is what we call the buyer's pyramid. So we know that in any given market, I don't care if you're in Toledo, Columbus, San Diego, Orlando, this pyramid is basically a funny looking pie chart of your market. And at any given time, only 3% are actively out there looking for a new property manager. These are the people using AdWords, which is the right medium for that top 3%. There's another 7% that are maybe 30, 60 days away from being really fed up because their property manager won't call them back, or because they're managing the property and now their tenant's not paying rent, or they're leaving the area because they got a job change and they no longer think they can self-manage. And that same message and that same offer that would attract the 3% would actually convert them to a client. You just have to use a different medium because they're not looking for you. And so you have to find them. And so I think this is a great illustration of why the medium, the message, and the offer are so important. Now, Danny, I mean, you're a math guy. We've only covered 10%. How much does that leave left of the target market that we're not using?
This reminds me back to the poll earlier, which is, the biggest complaint is no qualified leads. Yeah. And I think this is the graphical illustration of what we're actually saying is, I don't have enough people in the top 10%. Exactly. And that's also reflective of, and I don't want to pound the mindset thing too hard here today, but I'm not sure that we can do that, because let me just say, guys, like I've seen so many people lose out on their sales and marketing spend because they fail to embrace a long-term strategic mindset around sales and marketing. And I think this chart illustrates one of the ways that we do that, and that is that we only want to think or talk about or deal with the top 10%, and we're not really willing to put the effort in to engage what you have below the line there.
Yeah, because that's work. That's
hard.
That's follow-up. So yeah, most of us are fighting over the top 10%, right? And so if you're looking at this and you're like, all right, Jeremy, I understand. What is the rest of this pyramid? People that are unaware or misunderstand. And by the way, the bottom 30% are just people that are never going to hire you. And you got to realize that person's brother owns a property management company, or that's like, somebody I used to know that like had a bunch of rental properties and they took pride in like literally driving over and taking the garbage cans every night. Like it was their identity that they were a self-manager. So there's always those people, but there's this huge chunk, 60% of the market that I would bet almost nobody on this call is focusing on. And this is the opportunity, Danny, that I was so excited to share with you that will compress the unit acquisition cost. So if your unit acquisition cost is outrageous, my guess is you're over-indexed on this top 10% and you're not focusing on the rest. And so bear with me, I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So you're like, okay, well, what is that bottom 60%? So just some quick stats. This is from your favorite source, Danny, the IRS. Yes. 10.6 million Americans earn income from rental properties, right? It's an amazing amount of people. The market, as we all know, and NARPM talks about all the time, is much larger than we think it is. Mom and pop landlords, and this is from JP Morgan Chase, own 20 plus million rental units. So this is the business that most of us are in business to go after. Am I right? This is who our most profitable clients are, not these like giant institutions, but the mom and pop landlords. Get this, half of all landlords manage their own properties. So when you start thinking about that pyramid, I hope this is coming into focus for you guys. The goal is not to steal your fellow NARPM members' properties, although that will happen from time to time. The goal is to convert these self-managing landlords that are completely unaware or misunderstand what we do. And half of all single landlords purchase the property as a primary residence, which basically means if we're not having a conversation with our market about homeowners that are about to move because they're upsizing, because they're downsizing, because they got a promotion and they need to leave the area, and we're not having educational conversations with those people about turning that residence into a rental, which a sliver of America understands. Most Americans that own homes think when you move, you sell your property. It's a default knee-jerk reaction. Most of us on this call realize that may not be the best financial decision they ever make in their life. And unless you're going after these people, you're completely ignoring the rest of the pyramid. So this is where it gets expensive. And this is where I'm trying to help Danny solve this problem for your clients. we're all fighting over that top 3 to 10%. Some of us only want to talk to a lead that is going to make a decision in the next week. We're not willing to educate those people. These are the most expensive leads. These are the leads that cost thousands of dollars per lead, whereas the bottom part of the pyramid can cost pennies on the dollar. If we can find these people, if we can court them, we can be the person that prevents them from ever turning into a Google search. If you're frustrated with how expensive Google searches are, why don't you solve that problem by finding the people before they're ready to search for Google, right? And just basically owning them before they go forward. So Danny, I want to transition from that. Those are two big concepts. Any questions or anything you want me to clarify?
No, I think just the point here is not that you don't focus on the top part of the pyramid. The point here is that you focus on all aspects of the pyramid, right?
Exactly. Yes. And so I'll take that as my transition, which is amazing. So many clients came to me and they said, hey, I wasted a bunch of money on AdWords, pay-per-click. We love pay-per-click. The thing is if you truly embrace this pyramid concept, that you'll realize, okay, there's only 3% of the market looking. If I spend $700 a month and I close 4 deals, that's amazing. Okay, let's go to $1,000 a month. Okay, I still only closed 4 deals. Let's go to $1,500 a month. Okay, I closed 5 deals, but now it's starting to get a little like less, it's not really like returning the same amount, right? So the problem that I've seen is that some people have had a little success with pay-per-click, and then they try to basically apply that to the whole pyramid. But if these people are unaware of what a professional manager does, or they misunderstand, they're not on AdWords. So you cannot 10x your spend and expect 10x the results. So what I like to look at AdWords is as the hammer. So a great pay-per-click campaign, and I'm happy to show you guys some best practices, because some people will be like, oh, I did pay-per-click, it didn't work. That's where we did the research last quarter. We put together best practices of what the best pay-per-click campaigns look like. But pay-per-click is a hammer. Like, it's that top 3%. It's brute force. And if you need to open a wine bottle, a hammer is not the best tool, right, Danielle? Have you tried to open a wine bottle with a hammer? It's not an eloquent solution. You need a wine key, which takes a little more finesse. It takes a little effort. It takes a little more time. So what the biggest mistake I'm seeing when it comes to pay-per-click is people get a little success and then they say, okay, well, if that worked, let's just apply it to everywhere. But if you believe in what I'm saying, which is there is this buyer's journey and that you need campaigns specifically designed with the medium, with the message and the offer for people at different processes, then you can't apply a campaign from one part of the pyramid to a different part of the pyramid, right? That's going to be, I hope everybody goes home and tries to open a wine bottle with a hammer tonight, and that will really solidify the message. So what we did is we went out and we said, okay, what is it that actually works and how do we do this? And so we realized that the best clients we're working with are creating campaigns for all stages of the buyer's pyramid. So they've got 7, 8, 9 campaigns. They become campaign generating machines. They stop making these medium-based decisions and they realize, like, okay, what's the best campaign for somebody who's going to buy tomorrow? Okay, what medium can we reach them in? What's the right message and what's the right offer? Okay, what's the best campaign to reach people who completely misunderstand what we do? And so we kind of did this research and we found it out and we realized there's different philosophies. So you might be saying, well, how do I get in front of somebody who's not going to buy for 6 months? That was Danny's first question when I first kind of presented this thesis to him. Well, you go out there and you do a lot of the stuff that Jordan's been teaching you guys for years. And you basically create lead magnets, right? You advertise on YouTube, you advertise on social media, you put downloadables on on your website, you use direct mail. And instead of offering them to only call you if they're ready to hire you tomorrow, you start using education to reframe their thought process around your product. So you basically offer them a free downloadable of the 5 most expensive mistakes real estate investors miss. And then when they download that, they're in your queue and you can follow up and you can nurture that person. They're not going to buy tomorrow. Danny mentioned marketing qualified versus sales qualified lead. This slide is the answer. Everything above the orange line is your sales qualified lead. That person will not be shocked when you call them after they interact with you. They're expecting to engage with you. Everything below the orange line, they're going to be a little offended when you just pick up the phone and call them. They're just coming into your foray and they're looking to be nurtured over time and educated. And you're basically going to raise them up the pyramid until they become a sales qualified lead. Because there's no version of this process where Danny's going to let me tell you to spend your money on marketing qualified leads unless that person's going to turn into a client over time. So there's really two pillars to this. There's the way that we bring them into the fold, and then there's the nurture that drives them up the pyramid. And so basically, we need to be going after sales qualified leads because that's the business we're going to close in our pipeline this month and next month. That's going to cost us $100, $200, $500 per lead. But we also need to be generating marketing qualified leads that we can nurture over the next 3 to 6 months or maybe 3 years, right? As long as you're in business, you're going to keep nurturing these people. These guys are going to cost us like 5 cents, 10 cents to acquire. We're going to make up the difference in time and effort, which you're already budgeted for. You already have people, you already have software. So you are going to invest in nurturing that person into a sales qualified lead. It's just going to be a dramatically lower cost value proposition. Danny, did I make the point? Anything you want to add to that or any questions on that?
I know, I love this. And I think what this all says is you have to have a long-term mindset. And so if someone's like, okay, I'm in Jeremy, I want to embrace lead generation with a long-term mindset, like, give me the tactics, not the tactics, like the framework from which I begin to think about how to structure campaigns in terms of the medium, the message, and the offer at each of these levels.
So there's a little bit of work there. Obviously, that was a very big question summed up into a very quick answer. So I think what's important is that, our clients are taking away this idea of a campaign mindset. And they're really they're starting the question with, who are we going after? Where are they at in the buyer's process? And then what is the right medium? What is the right message? And what is the right offer to move them forward? So one of the things that, I probably can't go over on this call, but like the quarter we spent last year going through this is we literally found out the right medium and the right campaign for every part of the buyer's pyramid. We have all these best practices, and I can send this out. I'm happy to share this with everybody on here. It's all the best practices for running a pay-per-click campaign, because that's the medium we found for actively looking. Surprisingly, if you take the same the same message and the same offer, but you have the right list of non-occupied owners, you can actually use direct mail to go after the 7% that are kind of open to it. And you're probably going to close a bunch of business. And so we've got, best practices on there. When you start to get into marketing qualified leads, we've got some really cool stuff like YouTube pre-roll advertising that's working. So if you guys watch YouTube at all, it's like the second most popular search engine. They have the little 5-second ads that pre-roll. I don't know if you know this, Danny, but if your customer, your prospect doesn't watch 30 seconds of the ad and they skip it, you don't pay for that ad. So I can go out and I can advertise on BiggerPockets and other, influential areas. And I call this like the crosshair targeting, because I can target on interest, which is real estate investing or financial investing. And I can target on location, meaning they're in Toledo or they're in Boca Raton. And I can only show my ads to those people. And we're getting view rates, if you don't skip it, for 5 cents per view. And then we're driving them to subscribe and to follow up. And we're basically, this is real lead gen. Like this is where we talked about at the beginning. And I'll just pause for a second here on the share. This is where we think most people misunderstand. People think lead gen is they call me and they're ready to buy. Lead gen is creating people to sell to, right? Wouldn't you agree? I mean, lead gen is just like, now it is my duty to nurture and sell this person. Anything you want to add to that?
I was just looking at your deck here, and I'm just going to reshare the screen. I think this graphic that you have here would be particularly helpful. Can you just talk us through this real quickly to give a sense of the different kinds of campaigns that might, or the different kinds of mediums that might work better than another at different levels of the pyramid?
Yeah, so to steal your phrase, the medium is the tactic. You still need the right strategy. So just running a paper per lead ad with all property management requires no strategy. So pay per lead is just hiring an all property manager or one of the other people. and you're just saying, hey, just give me a phone number of somebody who might be looking for pay-per-click. And now it's all on the sales team, right? There's literally no strategy to that until you reach out to them. So that's a great way of active looking. Obviously, AdWords we think is amazing because if somebody's literally typing in Boca Raton property manager, they're ready to go. And this is not a definitive way. In fact, you'll see like direct mail here is on here twice. I think some of these mediums can fit in different buckets. What we try to do with this graphic, Danny, was say, this is how you should be thinking from an inspiration standpoint to build campaigns. So you're like, okay, well, I want to go after people that are unaware. So you and I have a shared client in Orlando who had a ton of success with local radio. And Orlando is a very highly appreciating marketplace, and it's a highly transitory market. People are moving in and moving out all the time. And so they were just running radio ads basically with the message. So that was the tactic. And the message, the strategy was, hey, are you moving soon? Are you leaving the area? Are you looking to upgrade your home? Did you know that Orlando real estate has appreciated on average of around 7% per year for the last 10 years? You would be hard pressed to find a stock market alternative to that kind of investment. If you're thinking about moving, call us for a free, this is the offer, right? So that was the message. This is the offer. Call us for a free analysis of your property and find out how much more money you can make by renting your home than selling it. So you just saw it. You saw the medium, you saw the message, and you saw the offer all right there going after somebody totally unaware. They ripped out market share of Orlando that did not exist before they did that. If they only were doing AdWords, they would have missed out on all those people that would have been selling their home and never in the marketplace. So it's kind of like my best case study on this chart.
That's awesome. Jeremy, super helpful. And I want to close with a couple of questions and big takeaways here in just a second. But folks, if you're thinking, all right, this is helpful, I need to figure out how to figure out next steps. Where do I go from here and where do I stand today? I want to give you a couple of things. First of all, Jeremy's obviously done a lot of work on this. And Jeremy, just go ahead and put your chat your information the best way people can reach out to you on some of the things that you shared today. And I want people, I want to encourage you all to just get in touch with Jeremy at RentScale. What they're doing here is, I think, really profound in the sense that they're trying to equip property management entrepreneurs with the strategy of how to master lead generation and do so in an adaptive way that has a long-term view and long-term results in mind. So reach out to Jeremy. And then we'd also like to help you get clear on where you stand in terms of your growth goals and how that ties into your overall plan for driving a profitable business forward. So you've got this resource from NARPM, amazing resource. If you're a NARPM member, you can go to narpm.org and get access to this financial performance guide. And then in addition to that, and by the way, there's the URL for that if you're a NARPM member. In addition to that, just some next steps. Number one, you got to get clear on what you're trying to achieve here. Okay. What Jeremy's talking about is a major investment over time, and it's going to require some clarity on the why for you. Why do you need to grow? Okay. You're going to have some motivation, and it's going to have to tie back to some big picture financial and purpose outcomes for you to keep you in this game. So what are your growth targets? What is the lead volume required to hit those targets? You need to define the gap between your leads today and your actual leads, your target leads and what you are actually bringing in today. How many do we need to bring in to actually hit our growth rate target? And then as you start to look at that delta, all right, we need to bring on 20 new leads per month. Where are those leads going to come from? Maybe you've got some, various campaigns in your mind, but start breaking that volume, that total delta down into the various sources and campaigns that are going to be long-term or short-term based on what Jeremy's sharing with us, and build your plan. And so we've got a tool that can help you get clear on the big picture outcome that you want from a financial perspective and tie that all the way back to the number of new leads you need to be generating on a monthly basis. And it's our forecasting model, which ties unit growth down to your lead growth and the various segments of lead growth and what conversion rates are going to be required and exactly how many leads you're going to need as a result of that. And so I'm going to give you this forecast model. We'll send this out in the follow-up email today. And then if you feel like, man, I just don't have a clear plan for how to crush growth in 2023 and beyond, we'd love to help you get clear on your sales lead forecast to achieve your financial goals. So happy to jump on a call with you, look at your P&L, help you define, hey, this is the financial target I'm going for. What kind of growth do I need to have in my company to achieve that? Help you get clear on how you stack up to these key benchmarks, and ultimately get input on how to create a sales lead forecast to achieve your financial goals. So if that's of interest, how it works, you just send us your P&L. We go through that. We sit down on the phone with you, help you calculate your key metrics, provide you with 2 to 3 next steps that will add $50,000 to your bottom line every year, and then give you some input on how to create a sales lead forecast to achieve your financial goals. So if that's of interest and you want some help building out a model like this, just say, yeah, I'm interested in that in the poll that I'm going to throw up right here. Happy to reach out based off of you raising your hand and get that scheduled and help you with some of that clarity. So let's go ahead and wrap here, Jeremy. And I just want to ask you, people coming off of this call, like, what's the biggest mistake they could make after they've heard everything that you've shared today in terms of like, boy, that was not the right direction to go from this call? What would you say is the next step that people need to be thinking about?
Can I give you two? Because it's something I have all the time.
Yes.
Okay. Two biggest mistakes we're seeing out there with people trying to generate leads is, number one, they're doing what we call descriptive marketing or advertising. They're literally stuck in the 80s where you just had a phone book and all you're doing is describing your service. Hey, we're a property manager, we charge X and this is what we do, right? You're not creating offers, you're not creating messaging and hooks and saying, hey, this is why this is exciting and different and this is what I can do for you. Much like Danny just did, by the way, by offering that amazing offer to do the free P&L review. I'm not a property management company, but I might send you Rentscale's P&L, Danny, before we're done. That was a fantastic offer. That was an offer. Like, you just made my point. Most of us out there, I'm guilty of it too. This is no judgment. I'm 20 years into my entrepreneurial journey and I ran a marketing agency, and we're all guilty of just describing our service instead of actually creating a target market, a hook, and then making an offer, right? So the goal of lead gen is not to sell people. The goal of lead gen is to create people to sell to. And that is a fundamental difference. So that's number one. Number two, the biggest mistake is only going after that top 3% of the pyramid, right? That is the hammer. We do not, like Danny said, we don't want to discourage you from investing in that. Your optimal environment is you're spending exactly as much as you need to take advantage of that business, no less, no more. If you find out it's $500 a month in advertising to close the 3% looking for you, or if you find out it's $5,000 a month because you're in a giant market or you're in multiple markets, that's what you spend. You can't take that and 10x it and expect 10x business. So we want to make sure you've got campaigns for people all through the process. Those are the two biggest mistakes I'm watching left and right all day.
Yeah, I'm going to add one if I can.
Yeah.
And we've alluded to it throughout the process of this webinar, but I've worked with a lot of clients who are fundamentally struggling with an identity that's limiting their success. And that identity is, I'm a property manager. That's what I do. And I don't know sales and marketing, and I don't really have any interest in building that capability and skill set. And I'm going to leave you with a question that my mentor in sales and marketing asked me. And I think it's about one of the most profound questions that you could answer to inspire you to take action on what Jeremy is sharing today. And it's this question: are you a property manager that happens to do sales and marketing? Or do you run a sales and marketing agency that happens to do property management? And the way that you answer that question will tell us a lot about your perception of yourself as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are going to answer that question. They're going to say, property management is optional. Like, I certainly have purpose around that, but if you're an entrepreneur, you know that you have to fundamentally master and own sales and marketing to succeed as an entrepreneur. And I don't want to undermine the value of having purpose specifically around property management, but that's the offer. That's the you know, the service can, you know, that's optional. If you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, you absolutely have to master sales and marketing. And I would encourage you to buy into that identity. You can outsource some of the and you can delegate some of the work. You can outsource some of the tactics, and you can hire people like Jeremy to help you understand the strategy, which I absolutely encourage you to do. But you have to understand it if you want to succeed. Jeremy, disagree or disagree? I agree or disagree. I just gave you two options there.
Could not agree more, Danny. I mean, you're basically speaking my language. I'm ready to give you an amen here. I'm convinced.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning on today. Up next, Wednesday, May 17th at 12 p.m. Central Time, episode 5 of the 2023 Profit Power Hour. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. As always, we appreciate you. Thanks for all you're doing to serve your tenants, your clients, and your communities. Jeremy, thanks so much. And if you want to get in touch with us here at Profit Coach, pmprofitcoach.com, or you can always reach out to me at daniel@pmprofitcoach.com. Everybody,
rock, Danny. I appreciate you.
Rest of your day.